Who is the most valuable Straw Hat in every One Piece arc? We're going to be answering that today, but first we need some ground rules. Number 1, it would be very easy to put Luffy as the MVP for every single arc, because he always fights the main villain. So to limit that, I'm only going to put him when it really feels earned. Number 2, in arcs where the Straw Hats aren't present, of which there are only a few, I'll choose from Luffy's allies throughout the arc. I don't want to waste any more time, so let's get started. Romance Dawn. For the very first arc, we only have 2 to choose from. And since Luffy saves Zoro's life, the MVP has to go to Luffy. Orange Town. Again, we only have 3 to pick from, and I'm going to give it to Nami. She helped save Luffy from Buggy when he was in the cage. She also helped distract Buggy so Luffy could get in the final blow. Syrup Village. Even though this is the arc where Usopp was introduced, Luffy has to get it for defeating Kuro. Baratier. This one is obvious. It has to be Zoro. Even though he lost to Mihawk, he gave it his all and earned the respect of Mihawk, which saved everyone there. Remember, Mihawk was just there to kill. I don't think he would have stopped with the Kree pirates. So for putting in an incredible performance in saving everyone, Zoro gets his first MVP. Arlong Park. So this is where I should define what MVP means to me. It's not the strongest character, but the one who contributes the most based on the abilities that they have. What that means is that a weak fighter beating a strong fighter is better than a strong fighter beating a slightly stronger fighter. For that reason, the MVP is going to be the one and only Usopp. The fact that he beat an opponent far stronger than him, whose equals were giving Zoro and Sanji a hard time, is far beyond what anyone would have expected from him in this arc. Loguetown. This is a weird one because the Straw Hats don't do much themselves in this arc. Like, I want to give it to Dragon, but he doesn't count. So I think it has to go to Usopp on a technicality since he defeated Moji and Richie to save the Merry so they could all escape. Reverse Mountain. I mean, Luffy is the only person who does anything in this arc. He started all the trouble by punching Laboon, but he also settled it, so Luffy is the MVP. Whiskey Peak. Another very obvious one was Zoro defeating pretty much all the Baroque work agents single-handedly, and saved Vivi from Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine. Little Garden. Finally, we get our first Sanji MVP. Regardless of what happened in the fight with Mr. 3, there was no way they were going to be able to get off the island. So Sanji finding the hideout and getting the log post to Alabasta was critical for the mission going forward. So Sanji gets his first MVP. Drum Island. This is easily Luffy. From climbing up the giant mountain carrying Nami and Sanji, to him protecting Hirulook's flag, and then finally defeating Wample. This is one of Luffy's best arcs, which makes him the obvious MVP. Alabasta. Now this one is tricky. I mean, you could say Sanji for helping them all escape from Crocodile's cage, but Alabasta is such a large-scale arc, so we need something bigger. The MVP of this arc has to be Luffy. Defeating Crocodile and ending the war are such important events that make up the climax of the entire saga. Crocodile's plan was perfect, and the only person who could have stopped it was Luffy, and that's exactly what he did. Jaya. This one might seem like it's obviously Luffy because he beat up Bellamy so bad, but not really. Jaya is a setup arc, and the goal is to make it to Skypiea, so fighting Bellamy didn't do anything towards that goal. The MVP of this arc is Nico Robin, for capturing the Southbird, which was the key for reaching Skypiea. If not for her, we never would have made it to Skypiea. Okay, it's another Luffy one. Enel was unstoppable in Skypiea. No one stood a chance against him, and that's including Luffy. Enel's lightning powers allowed him to one-shot pretty much every single person on the Sky Islands. Luffy was the only one who could take his attacks, and that's because he was made of rubber. Even still, he was struggling in his fight because of Enel's observation haki. He was only able to land a few attacks. The only reason Luffy could win is because Enel decided to meet him head-on instead of dodging his attack. Luffy single-handedly saved every single Skypiean along with the crew. Long Ring, Long Land. Another obvious one, and it's Usopp. Usopp is the one who gave Luffy the afro, and a sick warm-up speech. I mean, listen to this.
You listen up, Luffy, and you listen up good. You ain't your old self no more. You put that boy to bed, and now you gone and woken up a man. Just like that hairstyle's woken up your wild side. Since the dawn of time, man has wondered if the champion makes the afro or the afro makes the champion. But that's a question even modern science can't answer. Listen, with that afro on your head, your fists are weapons of mass destruction.
All right, Pops, let's rock.
Oh, funky! I can feel that jive lighting a fire in my soul!
And as we all know, Luffy would have lost if it were not for the afro, since it gives him a boost in all his fighting abilities. Foxy was so strong that this power-up was necessary for Luffy to beat him and keep the crew together. Water 7. This one is difficult because all the Straw Hats were standing on business in this arc, except Usopp. You could say Nami for being the one to rally the Straw Hats into their attack on Enies Lobby. You could even say Chopper for growing in his role in this arc, fighting the Frankie family and saving everyone from the Galley Law of Fire. But the MVP has to be Sanji. He always believed in Robin. And I mean, just look at this scene.
Bingo.
He found out where Robin was going and charged in to fight CP9 without any backup. Eni's lobby. There are multiple contenders here as well. Zoro for defeating Kaku, who had Robin's key, Sanji for opening the gates of justice allowing them to escape, or Luffy for fighting Rob Lucci. But it has to go to the one and only Sniper King. For his first mission with the Strawhats, he was on fire. Sure, he struggled against Jabra, but that was because he was being held back by Zoro at the time. He couldn't go all out. He was the one to save Robin by sniping all those Marines from what looks like miles away. And at the climax of the arc, he goes in and gives Luffy the ultimate inspirational speech that helps Luffy finally defeat Lucci, getting Sniper King the assist. You throw in him shooting down the flag, and you got the ultimate MVP candidate, post Eni's lobby. Frankie is the reason why our journey didn't stop here. Not only is this when he joins the crew, but he also makes the Sunny, which has been carrying the crew to this very day. Thriller bark. Nothing happened. Saba Odi.
Don't do it!
Easy. You see this?
Straw Hat Luffy.
He's serious.
Now you're annoying me too!
Need I say any more? Also, honorable mention to Kuma. Amazon Lily. Gotta give it to Boa for helping Luffy get off the island and into Impel Down. Impel Down. Now I made the rule that I'm allowed to choose any allies when the rest of the crew isn't present, but I made that rule with one specific character in mind. Bon Clay. Friendship is not determined by how much time you spend together, and in this arc, Bon Clay cemented himself as one of Luffy's most loyal friends. Not only did he save Luffy in level 5, carrying him to safety in the bitter cold, and he made the ultimate sacrifice opening the gates of justice, allowing the entire prison break to escape. This arc made Bon Clay everyone's favorite character, at least for a while. Marineford.
Even after death, his body remains upright. The haunting image of his battered body, which mowed down his enemies, was a sight to behold. The final tally of sword wounds he received in this battle was no less than 267. The number of gunshot wounds, 152. He was struck by cannonballs 46 times. And yet, if you were to look upon the proud back of this great man, you would see that in this battle, and indeed his entire life as a pirate, it remained unmarred by any sign of retreat.
The GOAT. Post Marineford, when Luffy was at his lowest, the only man who could save him was the future Straw Hat, Jinbei. Fishman Island. And we are back to having Luffy as our MVP. This man knocked out 50,000 Fishmen using Conqueror's Haki. That is half of the Marines that were at Marineford. He also defeated Hody Jones, befriended Shirahoshi, who's an ancient weapon by the way, and freed Fishman Island from the control of Big Mom. Punk Hazard. Alright, let me tell you who it's not. Zoro. Because he was too scared to actually fight Monet, he endangered every single person on that island. Monet would have nuked the entire facility if it weren't for Caesar being an idiot and getting the hearts mixed up. This is cheating, but Zoro made me so mad I'm giving the MVP to Law, even though he isn't a Straw Hat. Law embarrassed Smoker, defeated Virgo once he got his heart back, and is the one to come up with the whole plan to defeat Kaido through Doflamingo. So yeah, Law gets it. Dressrosa. In the massive arc that is Dressrosa, one man stands out, and that man is Usopp. He saved every single Colosseum fighter and ignited the revolution against Doflamingo when he took out Sugar. Doflamingo gave this man a 500 million berry bounty, which was higher than Luffy's at the time. On top of that, he saved Law and Luffy from Sugar again. They were unaware of her abilities and would have been taken out before they got to fight Doflamingo. But Usopp came to the rescue with an impossible sniper shot that took out Sugar, awakening observation haki in the process. Even though Usopp didn't defeat Doflamingo, Luffy would never have been in the position to if it weren't for Usopp. The problem is he literally doesn't do anything else for the rest of the series. Zoe. This is another weird setup arc without many Straw Hat character moments. I struggled with this one for a bit, but I remembered what happened in the flashback. Sanji gave himself up to the Big Mom Pirates in order to save the Minks and the rest of the crew. For all Sanji knows, he could be going off to his death, and he still makes that sacrifice to save his friends. Okay, now this is another obvious one, and it's Brook. For staring down a freaking Emperor of the Sea and stealing her poneglyph rubbings. And then he destroys the picture of Mother Caramel, which allowed the entire assassination plot to go into effect. Now you could argue for Luffy fighting Katakuri or Jinbei helping them escape, but Brook really came out of nowhere and put up an incredible performance, so I had to highlight it. Wano. This is the ultimate Luffy MVP arc. Kaido is a beast and the strongest creature, whatever that means. He fought like 20 guys on the roof and showed no signs of slowing down. Luffy was the only one who was able to actually fight him for an extended period of time, and it took his awakening in order to actually defeat him. Everyone else who fought in the raid couldn't beat Kaido if they worked together, so the fact that Luffy could actually defeat him makes him the MVP. Egghead, and I know I just did this, but this is another Luffy MVP. He held back all 5 Gorosei in order for the crew to escape. Let me say that again. He fought 5 massive immortal monsters by himself. Now he did eventually have help from the giants, but he was still the main fighter. He also awakened the giant robot who ultimately saved the day in the end, so Luffy gets the assist on that. So, the MVPist of the MVP is Luffy, with 10 total MVPs. Then is Usopp with 5, Zoro and Sanji with 3. Finally, Brook, Nami, Robin, Bon Clay, Whitebeard, Frankie, Jinbei, and Law with 1. Luffy is no surprise. Even though I try to limit him, he always ends up saving the day. Usopp was unexpected, but not surprising, because when Usopp does something, it's important. Zoro and Sanji tying is great because it keeps the rivalry going, and every other Straw Hat got one except for Chopper, which is unfortunate, but Chopper's head just wasn't in the game. Alright, so that was every MVP in One Piece.